What is good, you guys? Welcome back to the Heat Report. Welcome back to a brand new video where we talk all things Miami Heat basketball. Today's video, we're going to be talking about a rumor that has been floating around since the Portland Trail Blazers had gotten eliminated from the first round of the playoffs. Damian Lillard has been on the radar of multiple teams, and the Miami Heat has been one of them that have been mentioned. Now, this has been mentioned by Stephen A. Smith. I'm not sure how credible his sources are, but it's also been mentioned by some other outlets as well. Stephen A. Smith is like the main one. He actually brought this up on air, so if you guys watch First Take or something, you'll probably find the clip or something like that where he was talking about Damian Lillard, and Miami was one of the destinations that he actually mentioned that are calling about him. So I'm gonna assess this rumor. I'm gonna talk about this rumor. I'm gonna try to give as much analysis as I can about how Dame would fit with our team and what we would have to throw in for a possible trade for a guy with his superstar status. So before we even get into it though, make sure y'all leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. All that good stuff, man. We are less than 30 subscribers away from 600 subs. Let's get to that mark, man. You guys are helping the channel out every day by listening to the videos and hopefully by liking and subscribing if you guys are new, and commenting down below your thoughts on the videos. So let's get right into it. Damian Lillard, obviously one of the top, in my mind, one of the top 10 players in the NBA. He is a superstar for sure. Had a disappointing exit. His team had a disappointing exit, but he played amazing. He actually carried his team throughout that series. Had that magnificent game in game 6 or game 5, where he had 55 points. Almost single-handedly carried his team to victory. Unfortunately, they lost to the Nuggets in 6 games, and this is a lot of things has happened since then with the Portland Trail Blazers. They've been going through a lot of change as far as coaching. Terry Stotts and the Blazers have, after a long period of time where Terry Stotts cemented himself as the second winningest coach in their franchise history, he has been not fired, but they have mutually agreed to part ways, which is essentially being fired, I guess, in a nice term. And now they're eyeing a new coach. It's mentioned that Damian Lillard wants Jason Kidd as their next coach, and it's between Jason Kidd and Chauncey Billups. So they're going through a transitional period as far as coaching changes. There will certainly be roster changes, and I certainly believe that the backcourt of Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum will no longer be there. I think that the game against the Nuggets, Game 6, was the last time we're ever going to be seeing Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum together on the same team. Now, having said all of that, Damian Lillard, the day after the Portland Trail Blazers lost to the Denver Nuggets, on ESPN First Take, Stephen A. Smith actually brought up that Damian Lillard, that teams such as the New York Knicks, the Los Angeles Clippers, and the Miami Heat have all called or have all expressed serious interest about trading for the superstar out of Portland. And what would this require? Let's get right into what would this require. Obviously, I've seen some fans, some Heat fans. I'm going to talk about the Heat, obviously, because it's the Heat Report. Some Heat fans saying that, they would be okay if we traded away Bam, no matter how much potential he has, for a guy with Damian Lillard's status. Some other Heat fans saying they'd be reluctant to trade Bam. They said that, Bam is too good or whatever. I think that if we can pull off a trade for Damian Lillard by keeping Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, I think we're golden. Trading away Bam for Damian Lillard doesn't really solve our problems. Like, why would we do that? Obviously, Damian Lillard is a better player than Bam right now. There's no doubt about that. But where does Damian Lillard push our ceiling to? Like, how far does Damian Lillard make us? Like, not how far, how good does Damian Lillard make us? Like, how far do we go with Damian Lillard and Jimmy Butler and the rest of the others? Like, it's not that much further, in my opinion, than with what Bam and Jimmy were capable of doing. Obviously, Dame is the better player, but would we still beat the Nets with Jimmy and Dame and then a bunch of other role players? I don't think we would. Especially because if we were to match up against the Nets or the Bucks, Bam is a big piece, not only offensively against the Nets because they don't really have any people who can stop him, but against the Bucks defensively, who is going to be able to stop Giannis now? We don't have anyone. So I don't think that trading away Bam for Damian Lillard solves anything. Obviously, probably makes us a better team as far as win-loss record or whatever, but in the playoffs, I don't think it makes us, much more of a contender by only having Jimmy and Dame as our 2 stars. I think, we saw it. I mean, Dame and CJ were their Blazers' 2 stars, and obviously Jimmy's a much better player than CJ, but I just don't think that, Jimmy and Dame followed by a bunch of role players, it's good enough to win a championship, especially in this era where a lot of teams or super teams are being formed. Now, what I would give up for Dame, if we were able to keep Jimmy and Bam, I would throw the kitchen sink at the Portland Trailblazers. Now, obviously, if they're trading Damian Lillard, they're probably going to go into like more of a retooling phase, not really contending for a little bit. They're going to be building up their young pieces. The 2 young pieces they have right now, I think, are Nasir Little, Anthony Simons. I don't know if they have anyone else. I think they messed up trading for Norman Powell because I thought Gary Trent, if they were to move on from Dame or CJ, I think Gary Trent would fit their timeline a lot better. Norman Powell is older and he's a free agent. He's, I think, 27. So if they're going to a rebuild, he does not really fit their timeline. So Nasir Little, Zach Collins, who's always injured, Anthony Simons, I think those are the 3 people that I think like that's their young core, which is not great. I don't think that's great. So if you were to throw in like a Tyler, I would throw in a Tyler for Dame. Like a Tyler, and maybe a sign and trade with like a Goran, or maybe sign and trade with Kendrick Nunn if we were able to match their offer. Whatever happens, I would throw the kitchen sink at Dame, at the Portland Trailblazers to trade for Dame if we were able to keep Jimmy and Bam, because Jimmy, Bam, and Dame, I do think that it's important to have depth, but in the playoffs, star power always trumps depth. I don't care what anyone says. The Lakers, let's look at that 2020 NBA Finals. The Lakers had the 2 best players, for sure, with AD and LeBron. Although some people might argue that Jimmy played better than AD, which I think he did. But as far as like a talent is concerned, AD and LeBron were the 2 best players in that series. But you could argue that the Heat had 3 to 8. They had the next 5 or 6 best players, right? That, I guess some people saw that as an advantage, but it doesn't really matter, because if your stars play like stars, they're role players for a reason. They're not they're not as consistent as your superstars. So if you have 3 superstars like Dame, Jimmy, and eventually Bam on one team, then it doesn't really matter to me who else you have. You can sign another guy, you can sign people to minimum contracts. It does not really matter, because you're putting yourself in a position. Look at the Brooklyn Nets. Apart from KD, Kyrie, James Harden, and probably Joe Harris, and Dinwiddie, who's injured right now, so he doesn't really count. Apart from those 4 players, who else is there that's like an above average NBA player? I don't think there is one. I think Blake Griffin is past his prime. I think DeAndre Jordan is past his prime. I think everyone else on that team is, either young or not really established yet in the NBA or past their prime. So look at the Brooklyn Nets, though. They have the 3 superstars, and that's all that matters. The other pieces that you have to fill out, the role players, that's all secondary. That's all secondary. And don't forget, I would not be mad if Dame, Jimmy, and Bam were on our team, and then like off the bench we had Precious as a backup center, because he's going to be improving. I'm almost certain that Precious will improve this offseason. He's getting a summer league. He's getting a full offseason. He will be fine. So I don't think that, for the Heat fans talking about we need to keep our depth, we've been probably one of the deepest teams, in the NBA for the past how many ever years, but we've never had that star power. Since that Big 3 era, we haven't had, a superstar status team. We've had a very well-rounded, balanced team, but we've never had that cutting edge. We've never had that player that you look at and say, oh, he puts them over the top. Damian Lillard does that. And I think if we can get Damian Lillard, I would not be mad at throwing everything else besides Jimmy and Bam. Throw the whole kitchen sink at the Portland Trailblazers. And yeah, hopefully, they'll find our pieces valuable. If we don't get Dame, though, I think a lot of people are sleeping on CJ McCollum. I know he did not play as well as some Blazers fans thought he would play in the latter part of games, I think 5 and 6. He had that turnover or whatever. But CJ McCollum he's a very, very good NBA player. And if we cannot trade for Damian Lillard, CJ McCollum is a guy that I would be calling up for the Portland Trailblazers, because one of these two is going to have to get traded. One of these two is going to have to get moved. And it might have to be both. If the Portland Trailblazers want to go into a full-on rebuild, and if Jason Kidd is going to be their next coach, Jason Kidd is a guy who's a developmental coach. He's not a guy like when he was with the Milwaukee Bucks. He took them from 15 wins to 40 wins, right? He's a guy that takes rebuilding teams and makes them playoff teams. That's what he is. That's what his specialty is. He's not a guy who's going to make a playoff team into a contender. That's where you're going to need another coach. So if Jason Kidd is going to be their future coach, and he's a guy who's going to turn a rebuilding team into a playoff team, then CJ McCollum or Damian Lillard, one of them is going to have to go, or both of them might have to go, because they're going to be a rebuilding team with them. So I would not be surprised if they trade away both Damian Lillard and CJ McCollum. And if Damian Lillard is not, available, or not available, if he's if we don't have the assets to trade for him, I would not be mad if we traded for CJ, because the Portland Trailblazers, like I said, have to trade one of those stars away. Wanted to trade for is Miles Turner. I don't know what the Indiana Pacers asking price is, but Miles Turner I think would be a perfect fit alongside Bam. I think that him and Bam would work so well together, because he can stretch the floor, he can protect the rim, he can rebound the ball, he can do everything that complements Bam Adebayo's game. He can play the center, so he can move Bam to his natural forward position, and he can play out and Bam can play in. So I think that's a very good combination. I love Miles Turner as a complement to Bam, but I don't know if he's on the market. Obviously, we had the whole Bradley Beal debacle where he said that no comment when he was asked about his future with the Wizards. Bradley Beal, I would love to trade for Bradley Beal, but it would have to be the same thing as Damian Lillard without Jimmy or Bam. Would I be willing to give up Tyler for Bradley Beal? Probably, yes. I probably would be willing to give up Tyler, because, listen, Jimmy Butler is about to turn 32 years old. As good as Tyler Hero can be. You think, let's look at the Lakers, for example. They won the championship last year. You think they really care what Brandon Ingram was? You think they really care what Lonzo Ball was? You think they really care what Josh Hart was? No, they didn't. You think they really care what that fourth overall pick was, which turned out to be DeAndre Hunter? No, they do not. It does not matter. I've seen people say, oh, they traded away these 7 things just to win 1 ring. What else is the goal? You're supposed to win a ring, and they won a ring, so they don't really care. So if we win a ring with Jimmy, Bam, and Beal, or Jimmy, Bam, and Lillard, I don't really care what Tyler becomes. I don't. So, if a superstar or a borderline superstar player is available, we got to pull the trigger, because we cannot waste Jimmy Butler's prime. He's about to turn 32. I think he only has 3 years left or 4 years left. I don't think he has more than that left, especially with his game. He's a guy who loves to drive in. He doesn't have a shot. He like a reliable jumper at all from the 3-point line. So once you get older, you're going to lose some of that explosiveness, and then you're going to have to start shooting the ball more. And his jump shot is very suspect. So he does not have as many years as someone like a Steph Curry would, who is the same age as Jimmy Butler. Steph Curry is always going to be this good because his game is reliant on his jump shot. Jimmy Butler is reliant on strength, athleticism, will, whatever. He's kind of like his game. I think if he can take that LeBron step, where LeBron was like a freak of nature coming in, and Jimmy's not some big freak of nature, but he's a guy who loves driving to the rim, right? At the latter part of LeBron's years, especially in these last few years with the Lakers, you saw him expand his range, right? So if Jimmy can do that, go back to becoming a competent 3-point shooter, he doesn't have to be Klay Thompson or Duncan Robinson from the 3-point line. He just has to be able to he has to be respectable from the 3-point line. And then maybe, he'll have a little bit more left in the tank. But with Jimmy Butler's game as it is right now, he loves driving to the rim. He loves getting to the free throw line. Once he gets older, he's going to lose some of that explosiveness. So we have to surround him with a star. But yeah, that's going to be it for me, guys. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the video. Make sure y'all leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. And let me know your thoughts about Damian Lillard to the Heat. I'll see y'all later as always, man. Peace.